Well, the big breaking news coming in at this hour is that France's anti-terror prosecutor Remy Heitz has told a news conference that a gunman who carried out a mass shooting in Strasbourg cried Allahu Akbar as he opened fire. The official cited witnesses while making the statement. 4 people connected to the main suspect were detained overnight in the eastern French city. The gunman opened fire last evening at a famed Strasbourg Christmas market, which draws thousands of visitors every year. The shooting left 3 people dead and 13 wounded. French authorities said that the attacker had been on their list of extremists and is actively being hunted by security forces. And Elena, my colleague, is now joining us live from Paris for the very latest on this. And Elena, what more can you share with us about what France's anti-terror prosecutor has told news agencies?
So we heard from the prosecutor in a press conference a few moments ago where he revised, of course, the death toll, saying that 2 people have died. 1 is in a critical condition, brain dead in hospital, and another 13 people are injured. So the prosecutors have updated their death toll and revised it indeed down several times over the course of the last night and this morning. So what we know about the suspect then is that he's still on the run, that he commandeered a taxi last night which dropped him off in the Neudorf area of Strasbourg, which is where he believed to live, that he was armed with a knife and a handgun, that he'd been shot in the leg after a shootout with police earlier in the evening after he carried out his attack, and that the French authorities don't know where he is at the moment. They've got 600 officers locking down the Strasbourg area looking for him. They can't guarantee that he is still in France. He may have crossed into Germany. Strasbourg, of course, is right on the border, but they did close the border last night and impose a state of emergency in the Strasbourg area, which allows them to check passports at the French-German border, which of course they wouldn't normally be able to do. So they are still looking, though, for this suspect, and a manhunt is underway.
Right, Alina, thanks very much indeed for joining us with the latest there on what the prosecutors are saying about that. All right, we'll be getting you more on that later in the day. But, well, Prime Minister of Britain, Theresa May, is facing her biggest challenge yet, and lawmakers from within her own party have challenged her leadership. May is answering questions in the British Parliament where she insisted that the only way to have a Brexit deal is to first agree to a deal. May has also warned that a leadership change at this time will risk Britain's future.
In Strasbourg last night.
And Mandy Clark, my colleague, is now joining us live for more on what, well, Theresa May has been facing for the last 24 hours and what a roller coaster, Mandy, it has been. Now, of course, facing the heat in Parliament as well, and that no confidence vote from her own party that comes up later in the day as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Not a great day to be Theresa May, to be frank. The no confidence vote starts this evening. This will decide if she will stay on as the Tory leadership and essentially the Prime Minister. Now, if she wins that no confidence vote and she just needs a majority vote, that could be she could win with just 1 extra vote, then she won't have another contest. But if she loses, she has to step down from her post, and then there's a leadership runoff. So her Brexit deal would be dead in the water if she loses that vote. But let's say she does win that vote. She'll still be, she's a wounded leader, but she'll still be the leader and the Prime Minister. That means her next hurdle will be getting that Brexit deal through Parliament. The reason this no confidence vote was triggered is because many of her Tory MPs feel that the deal, their big issue is that backstop. That is the legislation that has been put in place in case they can't find a solution to the Northern Ireland and Republic of Ireland border. They want it gone. They want it scrapped. They don't want it a part of the deal. She went to Brussels to get more assurances that if the backstop does stay in place, that they won't be tied to the customs union forever. They feel that's a weak negotiating position, and that's why we're seeing this vote of no confidence. So now, if she survives that vote of no confidence, she still has to get that through Parliament, her deal, the way she sees it. And that she might then again lose that. And if it doesn't go through Parliament, she has to go back to the EU, back to the negotiating table. Right. So, you know, she might win one victory but lose another. It's not an easy path.
Right, and already, of course, the European Union leaders, including Angela Merkel, have told her that there's no renegotiating, there's no going back to the drawing table. So this is what she has, and she has to sell it to her own parliament. But that hurdle now, is the other story, the backstory now. The first thing she needs to get through is this no confidence vote. And how does this no confidence vote actually take place?
It's going to take place this evening, and essentially every member of the Conservative Party will vote whether they do have confidence in her leadership or they do not. Now, a few of Theresa May's supporters have come out, like Amber Rudd, and said she'll be voting for the Prime Minister, but it's unclear how people will be voting until they put their decision in that ballot box. It will be read shortly after, we can expect around 8 o'clock, and then we will know whether Theresa May will remain as Prime Minister or not. It's unclear if she has enough votes to keep her at the minute, but there's no doubt that people who do support Theresa May and those who do not will be lobbying hard those MPs that are kind of hedging their bets.
All right, Mandy, thanks very much indeed for joining us with the latest there. We're also joined by Tom Brooks, Dean at the Durham Law School, author, columnist and policy advisor as well. And Mr. Brooks, thanks very much for talking to us this evening. Your thoughts of what and how things are unfolding for Theresa May and the repercussions of this on Brexit.
Well, I found the letters of no confidence, or letters calling for this no confidence vote, I'm not surprised by that. There's been a lot of disagreement and disappointment in her own party over her Brexit plan, and so I was expecting there'd be enough to trigger this. What I'm surprised at is the Prime Minister going so strong to defend her record tonight, instead of, say, calling a referendum, a new referendum on her deal or staying in the European Union that would have allowed her to potentially avoid win a no confidence vote tonight and allow her to kind of cling on to power for a bit longer. Parliament clearly undecided, clearly deeply divided over what to do next. It's not clear to me at all whether or not she wins tonight. Her Brexit deal still seems to have no chance at all of passing through Parliament, and so there will be a need to go to have some way of moving forward. Either a general election would be one way of doing it, another would be to have a new second referendum that might give her wings if she were to win it, and of course if she were to lose it, she would to go. So I think her position is very, very weak,
right,
and very bad.
Her position is very weak, but Mr. Brooks, she has gone on record to say, I will contest this vote with everything I've got, and also made the argument that if there's a leadership change within her own party, how will the Brexit, how will they actually conduct Brexit in the next 4 months? Because if the leadership changes, everything else changes as well. So is that a valid argument from Theresa May?
I don't think it's a valid argument from her, because she's presenting herself very much as the person to deliver Brexit. Of course, the problem is that those in her own party who were for Brexit, who are for leaving the European Union, they are the ones who are making the letters calling for a leadership challenge and an end to her as Prime Minister. They do not see her deal as delivering on her promises on Brexit, on respecting what they saw as the will of the people in the referendum result. I think changing the leader right now does not mean that Brexit must end or stop, although there might be some slight postponement. That is because a change of leader can happen in the next month or two. It could happen very quickly. There would be still time for that new leader to kind of carry on with the plan, or to do something else, get an extension on the Brexit timetable. All these things can still happen. So it's not a case of either Theresa May stays and has everyone's support and therefore we get Brexit, or she's removed and therefore Brexit won't happen at all. Neither of those options are on the table. What is, I think, very clear is that neither, it would seem, her cabinet, not her party, certainly not Parliament, and indeed it would seem the majority of the public, none seem to like her plan for Brexit. Well,
Mr. Brooks, thanks very much indeed for joining us with the latest there. So Theresa May clearly stands alone and isolated there as far as her own party is concerned, as well as Parliament and the reactions coming in from the European Union as well. Now, protests and road barricades across France have continued as many demonstrators said that the concessions made by Emmanuel Macron were not enough to calm her anger. Hundreds of students in western France barricaded their high school protesting against education reform. Some 170 high schools across the country took part in what they are calling Black Tuesday protests since last week. Students have begun to take part in the so-called Yellow Vest protests against French President Emmanuel Macron.
À peu près 62 000 élèves qui attendent d'avoir une école et on est au mois de décembre, il y en a qui n'ont toujours pas. Et nous, c'est vrai qu'on passe le bac en fin d'année, donc ça nous fait un peu peur de ne pas avoir d'école supérieure pour l'année prochaine, quoi. On a peur pour notre avenir, de ne pas savoir quoi faire, de ne pas être pris dans une école, quoi. Donc on manifeste parce qu'on n'arrive pas à être entendu. On ne peut rien faire d'autre que manifester, on ne peut pas faire grève, donc voilà, on est là, on manifeste notre mécontentement et c'est tout.
Days after President Macron announced measures to appease Yellow Vest protesters, including wage increase for the poorest workers and tax cuts for most pensioners, most believe that it is still not enough. Protesters said that Macron's measures were from an old economic framework and did not respond to their wants.
Je pense que c'est une bonne chose parce que c'est déjà une bonne première étape. Je pense que toucher les smicards, les gens qui ont le moins en France, ça reste le plus important et on peut ou ne pas être convaincu par la politique de Macron. Je pense que globalement, de moins en moins de gens sont convaincus, mais on ne peut pas dire qu'il n'y a pas eu de mieux. On ne peut pas dire que hier, ce n'est pas une bonne étape.
And well, due to the Yellow Vest protests, shops around Paris saw their revenue dip over the weekend as protesters stormed shopping areas, some smashing up storefronts and even looting shops. And shops have registered, in fact, a decrease of their turnover during the anti-government protests. Some of them have been severely damaged by protesters and rioters.
Parce que depuis le mois de novembre, depuis que les Gilets jaunes ont commencé leur manifestation, voilà, c'est une perte d'au moins 20% de nos chiffres d'affaires. Samedi, exemple de samedi, on n'a fait que 210 €, alors que voilà, on était bien parti pour faire les 10 000 quoi. Samedi de Noël, c'est toujours une période phare pour nous, quoi. Et là, voilà, c'est une perte.